All right, we have this great opportunity to interview this great student athlete that's doing amazing things in her sport. I'm so excited to have her here and be able to interview her. We'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Michaela Joyce. I am a rising junior fencer at the University of Notre Dame. A little bit about me, I'm a multi-time junior and cadet world team member. I have just entered my first year of being on the senior national team, and I'm excited for what life has to hold moving forward, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me as well.
And we'd love to have you. So tell me, when did you fall in love with fencing?
It's kind of a funny story. So my old coach came to my middle school and did a demonstration for International Day. Because my school, we have an event called International Day, and basically they bring in different speakers, different activities to show kind of, experiences that weren't necessarily very common, where I'm from in Northern Virginia. So I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Because I had been asking my mom to sign me up for UFC and boxing for forever. And she said, absolutely not. And I was like, but I want to do a combat sport. I've always fallen in love with combat sports and just the footwork aspect and the physicality aspect. And my mom was just absolutely against it. Mm-hmm. So I was I pulled up YouTube for her and I said, Mom, look at fencing. Mm-hmm. Isn't it so cool? She says, fencing? What is this? And so you know how sometimes kids get really obsessed about something for a week and then they never talk about it again? My mom thought that would be me because that was me with a lot of things, but I just kept bothering her about it. And she signed me up for a fencing camp and I loved it. And I've just been doing it ever since.
So no hand-to-hand combat, but poking somebody with a sharp object. We all good.
Exactly. I don't really think she understood the workaround I was doing until, I was on stage somewhere, getting stabbed at 100 miles an hour. But it's okay. Yeah, I love it. And my family has also loved it too. They've always been very supportive of me in just pursuing my goals and dreams. And the thing in my family, we never say I can't. Mm-hmm. That's a word that's completely out of our vocabulary. Yeah. It's if I said, I want to be an astronaut, right? Yeah. It's not, oh, that's unlikely. I can't be an astronaut. It's what do I need to do to take the steps to get there, right? What's the feasible way to get there? And that's just always been how my family has worked. And I think that's one of the big reasons that I've been able to have a lot of the successes that I've had. And I'm super grateful for it because, even though I started a sport where I was a minority and very few people looked like me, and then also on top of that, I started the sport pretty late for a high-level competitive fencer, I still was always determined that this was something that I could do because I had never been taught that anything was impossible. And so that was definitely something that I'm continuously grateful for to the day.
Yeah. So and when we met, your parents was very involved in a lot of the conversations and you actually welcomed that and you asked, can your mom or dad be on the calls? So I think that was really interesting to me. And so, with this new age of helicopter parents and things like that, talk about do you know what it's like for your parents and what they feel and how they kind of support your development mentally, emotionally through the sport and how that's really impacted you?
I would say that I wouldn't necessarily classify my parents as helicopter parents. I would say that they're almost like my advisors. Mm-hmm. I've reached an age where I typically know, I can tell different things, whether I want to do something or whether I don't want to do something, but they are mostly advisors. I could be like, oh, did you hear that? Or for example, if I'm in a meeting, my mom will say, oh, remember to bring this because they said that. And, also considering I'm traveling all the time and then I have school on top of that, just having them as the second and third eyes and ears for me is very, very helpful. And I'm really grateful for it just because it's so hard to keep track of everything on your own when I'm going from city to city, country to country, every weekend. Mm-hmm. So that's been absolutely amazing. And I would also say that fencing's changed not just my life, but my family's life in a really big way. I would say because, I've been able to bring my family and my parents to places that we never thought we would have the opportunity or want to go. Like, for example, we've been all over the world to Egypt. We went to Russia, actually. We were one of the last people to go to Russia and come back before it shut down to non-Russian citizens. And it was actually a great experience because it's just things like that we would have never thought, I'm going to go to Russia to like go on vacation, right? Yeah. So it's just I get to experience a different culture and we get to do it together, which is an amazing thing because my parents have sacrificed so much and have, gone to the ends of the earth to like see that I'm happy and that I'm chasing my dreams. It's just an amazing feeling to be able to bring them with me and to experience this part of life alongside me.
We're big on like personality and people understanding themselves. So like, how are you able to kind of define and understand your own personality in opposition to say like having your parents so involved in that experience? Like, how do they nurture like where your personality comes in and where theirs kind of ends, and like how they help you kind of separate those two experiences? And how do you basically define who you want to be and how you kind of see yourself in your own development and where you want to go?
That's another great question. Wow. I would say definitely I've always been encouraged to be myself. That was never something that was discouraged in my home. I was also always, encouraged to decide what I wanted to be, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. My parents were just there to help me get there. For example, if I wanted to be on Broadway tomorrow, right? Maybe not tomorrow, but if I wanted to be on Broadway, my parents would, help me find a singing coach or find an acting coach. They would never say, you need to try out for this role and you need to be on this show or you need to go here. It's not like that at all, right? It's just like I confide in them because they're the people I trust the most in the whole entire world. I confide in them in my dreams and what I want to do, and then they help me and advise me on my way there. Yeah. And also, I was the only child growing up. I have a half sister, but I consider myself only child because I never grew up in the same home as her. Mm-hmm. She's older than me. Mm-hmm. So we have a relationship, but it's more of like a kind of cousin relationship because we just never grew up together. So I didn't understand a sibling dynamic in the home. Mm-hmm. And because of that, yes, I was, alone, quote unquote, a lot. But because of that, I really was able to almost form my own like unique personality. And I necessarily didn't have the influences of like sisters or brothers, which sometimes, of course, I miss. Like as an only child, of course, you want a sibling and, you want someone to play with you all the time and hang out with. But at the same time, I never was pigeonholed because of that. I never had to play a sport because that's what my siblings were doing and it was convenient. I never really had to do that. So there was both pros and cons, but one of the pros is that allowed me even more to kind of determine my own identity and who I wanted to be and exactly what I wanted to do in the future. If that makes sense.
Got it. No, I got it. So, you were bringing up a lot of traveling, like going from different countries and things like that, especially every weekend and things like that. Traveling takes a lot out of us. And, especially when it's your sport is a solitary sport, right? Yeah. It's all you. How do you kind of manage your mental health going from place to place, changing from, time zone, or even like being a student and then being an athlete and going through those extremes? Like, how do you manage your mental health and kind of like keep yourself leveled or like sane, having to make so many changes so often?
I think that's something that's learned, right? Mm-hmm. When you first start fencing and traveling and going all over the world and going from time zone to time zone to time zone, it's difficult. Mm-hmm. It's very, very hard. But because I've been doing it since I was, a sophomore in high school, it's something that's definitely I've learned over time how to manage. And for example, it's recognizing what emotions I'm having and then what I can do to make the situation better or resolve those feelings. Like, for example, a lot of the times when I'm anxious, right, I'm probably sleep deprived or hungry. So I need to find a way I can get what I need to alleviate those feelings of anxiety, right? It all comes from knowing yourself. So when I travel to someplace, I might not know exactly what it's going to be like where I am, but I know myself, right? So because I know myself, I can find comfort in that and then also adjust my needs to wherever I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And also, like, when I travel, because of me doing it so often, I've really picked up on a lot of practices that help me with the time zones. Like, for example, if I'm flying to Europe, let's say I'm flying to France and I have an evening flight. When I land in Europe, it's definitely going to be the morning when I land. So what I'll do is I'll have dinner on the plane and then I'll immediately go to sleep, right? And then when I wake up, it's morning and then I stay up the whole day and sleep at night in the time zone of wherever I land. And then I do the same thing going back. So it's things like that. And also just having this self-control to be on the plane and say, no, I'm not going to watch a movie. I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to watch Batman for the 7th time. I'm going to go to sleep.
Hey, that's not a bad choice, though.
It's things like that. But it's like over time, discipline's a habit. And that's where discipline comes from. It's from repeatedly making cognitive choices to follow a routine in order to better yourself, in order to remain consistent.
So on the point of habit, we were talking about like your ice cream ritual. Like, tell us more about the ice cream ritual and that time that you it was a thing.
It's still a thing, but it's definitely better. For example, ice cream ritual started when I was at my first North American Cup. And I did really well. I had made top 8. And I was super happy. And for fencers, we are very superstitious people. And because of that, we have a lot of routines. So, for example, our warm-up before a bout, our warm-up before the tournament even starts, what weapons we use for what bout, a lot of the times people have different routines because fencing is a sport of milliseconds, right? It's less than half a second could be the difference between me winning a World Cup, right? 15-14, and then me losing a World Cup. 14-15. I mean, I've had it happen to me before multiple times. Yeah. And I would say every fencer has lost bouts because of a split-second decision or a split-second mistake. So because of that, we are very ritual-oriented. Maybe not all fencers, but a lot of fencers. And I'm one of those fencers as well. And so the ice cream ritual started. I did very well. And so I was thinking, what did I have to eat the night before? And I was like, oh my gosh, I had vanilla ice cream. And then it just became this thing. Yeah. So anytime I traveled somewhere, I would have 1 scoop of vanilla ice cream the night before I competed. But COVID happened. And then my tournament at the end of COVID was Junior and Cadet World Championships in Cairo, Egypt. And we were in a bubble because COVID was definitely still like a big thing. And I mean, it is now, but it was like a major, major thing. And we had to get COVID tested very often and go through this like whole process. And I was in this bubble and I literally couldn't leave. But the hotel didn't have vanilla ice cream. So it was, I need to find vanilla ice cream. It was mission find vanilla ice cream. It wasn't mission figure out who's in my pool bouts for the next day and watch video. No, it was mission vanilla ice cream. That's what it was. So me and my parents, we split up. We were asking people at the hotel, where can I get vanilla ice cream? Is there anywhere I can go? I can't leave the hotel. So then I got the idea from talking to another fencer. I was like, okay, I can sign up for an Egyptian phone number, download this app, get an Egyptian phone number, pay $20 for an Egyptian phone number so I can use it on like a food delivery app. And then I can deliver vanilla ice cream to the hotel. Someone who works at the hotel goes out, gets it for me because I'm not allowed to walk through the doors, brings it back, and then I can have my vanilla ice cream. So it was honestly, the most expensive scoop of vanilla ice cream I've ever had. It was like a $20 scoop of vanilla ice cream.
Wow.
But no, it was definitely worth it. But
did you win the match?
Oh, okay. I did well. I did well because I was also very young. So I was maybe 16 and I was fencing juniors, and I was, juniors is 18 to 20.
Yeah.
So I did very well considering, and cadets, my age group, I did very well. I made top 8 in the world, which is a great result. So I have no complaints, and I do like to give credit to the vanilla ice cream,
I get that. So you're one of, the few Black athletes in this sport, right? Like, I never heard of the sport. I just found out that the sport actually exists in Philly just today, right? So not very knowledgeable in the space. Like, what is that like mentally for like knowing that you're like kind of the unicorn in the sport and on the level that you're on and the trajectory that you're on? Like, how do you kind of like understand that and feel that?
I could approach this from multiple angles. One, the most important thing is being the unicorn wasn't something that came when I started fencing. I grew up in Northern Virginia, which is about 30 minutes outside of DC. And there's not a large African-American community there. So in my elementary and middle school, for many, many years in the entire school, I was the only Black student. So me being the unicorn wasn't something that was new. But, when I joined fencing, obviously that continued. But as I got more and more exposed to different people in the sport and different communities within fencing and more groups of people, I found my own community of Black athletes that I can look up to and also just find community with and share advice with and things of that nature. So that's actually been an amazing thing for me because honestly, I think it would have been very difficult for me to find a Black community that's young as well that I could connect with without fencing, right? So it's a two-sided coin. While yes, we're a minority in the sport, we've also formed a community where we support each other and also give advice to the younger group and the older group as well, if that makes sense. And honestly, I might not have had that if I didn't fence because of my school, and my high school was the same way. There were more Black and African-American students, but we were, again, a large minority of the school. So again, I've been through challenges because of the color of my skin in fencing, but also at the same time, I've found people who love me and have made community with me because of fencing as well.
Okay, so like, you see commercials with basketball players and football players and baseball and things like that. Never seen a fencing commercial, never seen like the endorsements for that individual, which, I think spurs a lot in our community about what sports we want to play and go after and find success in, right? Because of what is, popularized.
Exactly.
What would you say to like young people from our backgrounds in our neighborhoods and things like that you would sell fencing and why fencing is great? And let's talk about it from like a mental, emotional side and what you've learned from the sport in that aspect.
I think that's a great question. And what I would say is, again, I think you touched on a really interesting and powerful point, is that what we see is what we're made to believe that we can do, right? And that's why I mentioned my parents so much, because they never told me that. Nothing was impossible. But at the same time, I never grew up seeing a fencer that looked like me or even knowing that fencing was something that I could do until I was exposed to it. But again, I was the only Black student at that school. So it wasn't necessarily, that program wasn't targeted for people to look like me to be exposed to it, if that makes sense. But what I would say about fencing and why I think fencing is so important is because every sport is mind and body, but fencing is the sport, because I've played a lot of sports. Fencing is a sport, in my opinion, that is the true essence of mind, body, and soul integration. And the reason why I say that is fencing is a very high pressure sport. So when you're on that strip, it's just you, everyone's watching, just you. But at the same time, you have to find your center, right? And basically block out all of the other noise except for your coach and your own mind. And you need to solve a problem in front of you. Your problem is someone is trying to hit you, right, in a certain way. And you have to not only defend yourself, but you have to hit them, right? And so going through that problem solving all the time not just helps you become a better fencer, but it helps you become a better person, right? Because in life, we're all going to go through problems, right? We're all going to go through trials and issues, and that might come from different levels of severity and, from different places. But at the end of the day, when you are conditioned and made to believe that anything is fixable and that you can work through anything and nothing is the end of the world, imagine what that does for someone, right? Especially for someone who's, been through a lot and has been marginalized for a large point of their life, teaching someone that they can do anything and that no problem is too big for them to solve, right? Imagine what that could do for someone, like it could do for so many African-American kids.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to throw you a curveball question. I don't know how it's going to land, so I'm going to fill it out. So you're an only child, all right? You're in a sport that's an individual sport. How do you navigate creating relationships and friendships when you haven't had a lot of examples where you have intimately, daily, exercised those muscles of like sharing, being supportive and things like that, or outside of your family and what they give you? Like, how do you go there amongst your peers who are not fencers, who are just, regular students, and you have to go on campus and navigate creating relationships and friendships when that's like not a natural exercise for you day to day? Like, so how do you like manage that?
Again, another great question. I don't think that's a curveball at all. Okay. I think that definitely aligns with what we've talked about so far. And I would say that I'm not going to pretend like being social and developing deep relationships was always something that was easy for me, or that it's even easy now. It's hard. It's hard, especially when you grow up as an only child. Your sport is mostly an individual sport. It's hard, it's difficult, it's challenging. But again, like I was saying before, I was never made to believe because of my sport that I couldn't change something that I wanted to change, or that I couldn't address a problem, whether that's external or whether that's personal, right? So going to college was hard, specifically college, because again, that was really the first time I had experienced being on a team in the full sense of the word. And I had to learn a lot. And part of learning a lot is accepting criticism. And it is accepting the fact that there are going to be people who aren't going to 100% like you, right? But that's a part of life, right? So I would say that growing up as an only child, I didn't have any quote unquote unique issues that people who aren't only children don't go through. But I would say that an issue like that is just exacerbated, right? So it's not something that's unfixable. And it takes practice, being social, developing relationships. Like you said, it's a muscle, right? So I trained it. My freshman year in college, I bet I was annoying, probably. I was trying to meet as many people as I could. Hi, my name's Michaela. What's your name? I was looking crazy, kind of. I would just go to the dining hall and sit next to someone. I had no idea who they were. What's your name? Yeah, my name's Michaela. What's your Susan? Nice to meet you, Susan. What dorm are you in? Right? Again, it's a muscle. It's practice. And the people that, I believe that the people that God desires that to have in your life, and the people that God desires for you to influence and for you also to be influenced by them, it will happen, right? It's not something that I should have to chase and, I should have to, try to convince people to like me and convince people to want to be my friend. That's never been something I've believed in. For me, it was just exposing myself and being vulnerable and opening up to people, despite it being scary, despite me had never really using that muscle to a large capacity before. Despite me not doing that, I just used that muscle and I got better and better with it over time. I still struggle, but you know what? I've gotten a lot better and I've made a lot of great friends since coming to Notre Dame. And that I'm sure I'll have for the rest of my life.
Okay. All right. So we're big on music, right? Music is a big central part of our experience and stuff like that. So what I want to ask you is if there was one song that sums up your middle school experience, what would that song be?
That's a good question. And it's personal to me because my dad, he's an audiovisual engineer by trade. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with sound systems and, looking at these big sound decks and my dad's poking a whole bunch of buttons and twisting knobs looking like he's at a spaceship. And I'm like, what is this? But because of that, music was always something that was really big in my family. And I have a large vinyl collection because my grandfather collected, my uncle collected, my dad collected, and now I collect. And so we add on to it. And I would say because of that, I grew up listening to my dad's music and my mom's music, but mostly my dad's. And I would say it's go-go. And go-go music it's originated in DC, the DMV area. Yeah. And go-go is one of my favorite genres of music. Just a little history lesson on go-go. Go-go is essentially extension and subsection of funk, or what you would consider funk. But go-go is very, very unique. So go-go has a unique rhythmic pattern, and it's more about finding necessarily the pocket, right, of music. And go-go is very long, and the whole thing about go-go is, can you stay in the pocket, right, or keep a beat for an extended period of time? Because go-go is supposed to be experienced by community and live. So because of that, I listen to a lot of go-go, and I would say No More Bad News by The Reaction Band. Okay. It's almost a 13-minute song, but it feels like 4 songs in one. But it's definitely something that when I was younger, I did not like. I was like, oh my gosh, Dad, please turn that off. Yeah. It's go-go's loud and it's a lot of energy and it's just repetitive. But when I'm older now, I love it. I think go-go is the essence of DC in so many different ways.
So would you say when it comes to your personality in music, you're more driven by sound and less about words and music? What do you kind of think is
I think that I appreciate both, but I go to a song for different reasons. I listen to a lot of music that's very, very heavy lyrically. And I listen to a lot of music that's it relies heavily on musical theory and a whole lot of those kinds of concepts.
Okay, give me one song that you say is heavy on lyric. What's your go-to song for heavy on lyric?
For heavy on lyric, I would have to say Sometimes It Snows in April by Prince. Oh. I think that song is... I really, really love that song because it does a very good job at telling a story that's very straightforward, but in a very metaphorical way. Okay. So because it's so metaphorical, it's not so much that it tells a story that it's unrelatable because it's a personal story. It becomes very relatable because it's so metaphorical. It allows you to see yourself in the story within the song. And,
so how do you see yourself in that song? Where does it take you? What do you see when you're listening to it? What do you feel?
Definitely, that song it's very heavy in loss and grief. And that's been a song I've turned to a lot this year. I actually lost one of my teammates and my friends in a car accident unexpectedly in March. And music was one of the core ways that I healed and grieved through that process, because also after, he passed, I continued through my fencing season. Mm-hmm. So he passed, and the next week I was at regionals to qualify for NCAAs. Mm-hmm. Then I did spring camp, and then right after spring camp, I went to NCAAs. Then right after NCAAs, I went to Junior and Cadet Worlds. Oh. So life never really stopped. Life never really paused after that. And so music was an excellent way that I could really just find time to be in touch with my feelings and really just understand and, wrap around my head around things that, were very shocking and things that I had never really experienced before. So that's why I would say that I think that's one of the best songs.
Okay, so now to wrap it up, what is the song that, when you're down, you go to pick you up and take you to the clouds? What is that song?
I would say Cody Blue 31 by JID. JID is a rapper. He his label is Dreamville, mm-hmm. Dreamville Records, and I really love that song because it talks a lot. It has a lot of religious imagery, which is very important to me as a Christian, but it at the same time is very realistic. It's very tangible. So one lyric, it's it talks about pressure, but then at the end of it, it says, right, this pressure will make or break me and take me to places where history will save me or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it basically talks about how, pressure and negative feelings and negative moments are there to inspire you and take you to the next level. And for me, that song I really like because, fencing's a lot of pressure and I'm always in a pressure-filled environment all the time. But it's how can I, change those environments to make them inspire me to do better in the future. So I might lose 14-15 in a close bout and it's absolutely heartbreaking, but how can I use those feelings of, sadness and loss and sometimes anger at myself to take me to the next level and inspire me to work even harder or to try something new or different.
Appreciate that. I totally get it. And I really appreciate you coming down to Philly to, do this podcast with us. And it was great having you. And it was great just traveling through your story and your mind and hearing all of those thoughts. And thank you for sharing. So, and for being so vulnerable.
No, thank you so much for having me. I always, enjoy talking about myself personally and allowing people to get to know me. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.